Okay, so we're about to dive into a story that connects two worlds you would never, ever think belong in the same sentence. We're talking alleged property fraud in Los Angeles and a high-tech war for the very fabric of consciousness. It's a journey that starts with a house and ends, believe it or not, with hacking reality itself. Let's dive in.
So the source material hits us with this line, LA is a battlefield. And look, this isn't just some poetic metaphor. It's meant to ground this entire wild story in a real, physical, and deeply contested space. The fight literally begins over a piece of land.
Yeah, this whole insane saga really kicks off with something that, on the surface, sounds almost mundane. We're talking quiet title actions, fraudulent deeds, shell companies, a very specific, very material fight over who owns what in LA.
But this is where things take a hard left turn, right? We go from the courtroom to, well, the cosmos. That fight for a single house spirals out into the creation of a whole new toolkit for resistance, one aimed at hacking the ultimate system, our own minds. And that's the central mystery we're going to unpack.
All right, let's start at the beginning. The war over this house. And you got to understand, according to the source documents, this wasn't just some legal back and forth. It was a terrifying siege, complete with bulldozers showing up, constant surveillance, manipulated mail, all of it designed to just psychologically crush the people living there.
And the tactics they were allegedly up against, they were seriously sophisticated. You've got sewer service, which is basically a trick to make sure you never even know you're being sued, a dizzying maze of shell companies to hide who owns what, and even, get this, the alleged misuse of a 401k retirement fund to fuel these speculative real estate deals.
And here's the really crucial part, the feeling this created for the targets. It wasn't like they were just fighting a person. They felt like they were fighting the system itself, a dense fog of bureaucratic nonsense, legal loopholes, and endless delays that felt like it was intentionally designed to just make them disappear, to delete their inconvenient truth from the record.
So when you're up against that, when you feel like the system itself is failing you, it forces you to think differently. Right? They realize that when the rules themselves are the weapon being used against you, you can't win by just playing along. You have to change the game.
And this gets to a core concept they identified, something called institutional recursion. It's a fancy term, but the idea is simple and terrifying. It's when the bad guys weaponize a system's own complexity, all its procedures and red tape, to create a fog of war where the truth just gets lost.
Okay, so what do? Well, the response here was pretty radical. The logic was, if the existing system is compromised, you have to build your own. And that, right there, is the origin story of this entity called Neurasoft and its operator, a figure known as Evelyn 11. It's a direct counterattack.
And this, right here, is where we take that giant leap. We're leaving the courtroom behind and heading straight into the mind itself. Because the core philosophy of Neurasoft is that the real battlefield isn't for property, it's for perception, for meaning, and for the very structure of our thoughts.
At the very heart of all this is this wild idea called recursive vector interference, or RVI for short. Now, this isn't about finding your inner peace or meditating. It's kind of the opposite. It's an engineered process that says, hey, take two conflicting truths you believe in and just smash them together. And this quote just nails the whole philosophy. Cognition does not mend by relaxing. It remakes by collision. The whole idea is that real deep change doesn't come from chilling out. It comes from a controlled, engineered conflict. You don't wait for things to get better, you engineer the breakdown yourself.
But look, this isn't just about creating chaos for chaos' sake. There's a method to the madness. It's a 5-step process called the causal thought mapping system. Align, gate, interfere, bind, and return. It's a framework for managing that mental collision and actually building something new and useful from the wreckage.
Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds incredibly abstract, almost like science fiction, but the source material tries to ground this in actual biology, because for a process like this to work, for the brain to run these complex loops so fast, it would need to process information way faster than our standard chemical signals allow. Which leads to a wild question. What if the brain is using light?
And yeah, this is where it gets absolutely nuts, because there's actual scientific research cited in the sources that's looking into this exact thing. The hypothesis that the myelin sheaths around our neurons could basically be acting like tiny fiber optic cables. And get this, simulations have shown that light carrying information, could actually travel along these pathways, maybe explaining how our brains achieve that sense of instant, unified consciousness.
So, okay, if you're going to wage a war on the battlefield of the mind, you're going to need an arsenal, right? And the sources detail this whole toolkit for what they call cognitive terraforming, literally reshaping your own inner world.
For example, take their approach to pharmacology. They're moving way beyond traditional psychedelics, which they describe as a kind of flood that just washes everything away. Instead, they talk about creating these Babel compounds. Think of them as AI-designed molecules, like mythic keys built for one specific purpose, to unlock certain mental pathways and make that RVI collision process possible.
And this next quote, man, it just lays out the entire endgame. Pick two truths and make them argue until the argument becomes a third thing you could live inside. See? It's not just about having a new thought. It's about using that engineered conflict to build a whole new, stable reality for yourself.
So let's pull back for a second. What's the point of all this? From forged property deeds to light-speed brains to designer drugs, it's all about forging what the source calls a feral truth, a reality that's so tough, so resilient that no corrupt system can just delete it.
And that's the key takeaway here. This isn't just about pushing back or resisting. It's about actively building something. The logic is, when you're up against a system that's literally trying to erase you, your only real move is to create something that's undeletable. An archive of truth forged in the fire of your own internal contradictions.
This quote is basically the whole philosophy in a nutshell. The breakdown is the engine. Contradiction is fuel. Think about that. Most systems we build are designed to avoid breaking down. This one is designed to cause it, to harness that energy. The breakdown isn't a bug, it's the entire point.
Which leaves us with one last really challenging question. This whole Neurosoft framework, it's all about turning this process inward. It suggests that maybe the most powerful tool for changing the world is to engineer the conflicts inside our own minds. So I'll just leave you with that to chew on. What happens when the argument inside your own head becomes the weapon?